I wrote this down. The NAACP said 1 in 3 black males born today can expect to do time in prison.
1 in 3?
1 in 3.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So you'll have some relationship with the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
It could be parole, it could be going to JJC, it could be jail, prison. Yeah, I mean, it's scary.
That's kind of true. It's like 1 in 3.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm 64.
Yeah.
Okay, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, mine came about in trying to defy the system.
Yeah.
Not gangbanging or robbing a bank. It's because I had the audacity,
Yeah.
you know, to run against the establishment here, which is so encrusted and tends to be so corrupt that they don't want reformed politicians here.
Right.
And that's, as you go forward, that's something you need to clearly understand.
Oh, yeah.
That they anything that's related to reform, okay, they're going to fight with all of their power, okay, legal or illegal power, to try and prevent. But I want to get back to 75% of the kids breakfast, lunch, and dinner, school-age kids, which includes high school, the poverty rate. The unemployment rate for black youth, no summer job. You know, it would be great if the mayor announced he's going to spend $15 million for a youth summer job program. And nothing, okay? And so you just out there doing whatever you do.
Well, and that's the thing. People think that there's so much work available here in South Bend. I mean, I worked at a temp agency here for about a week, right? So I got to see behind the scenes what people were making, you know, where they were employed at. And I'm seeing basically everyone coming into the temp agency is black.
Right.
Black, low income.
Right.
The jobs that they have, they're low wage jobs.
Medial,
you know,
basically.
And I mean,
service, retail.
yeah, service, retail. I won't say the employer, but it's a major employer here that's gotten many tax abatements, lots of development going on around it, right? Millions of dollars going to this business, but they're paying their workers $8 an hour, right? And that's temporary.
That's not a
seasonal.
living wage.
Right, it's not a living wage for one.
You could do that because you live at home.
Right.
And, you know, he doesn't pay rent or, you know, anything like that. Doesn't have a car payment because we gave him a car. But can you imagine a single mom?
No. It's not possible.
Yeah. Okay, so now just let me build on that. Single mom, 1 or 2 kids in school, whether that's elementary school or high school. Okay, she's working. Probably got to work 2 jobs, right?
Yeah.
So here you are, you know, mom's at work, you're basically on your own.
Right.
If you're 12, 13, 14, 15, something like that.
You're probably angry, have a lot of anxiety.
Other people, you go into school with kids who have things, okay?
Yeah.
Okay?
Your dad's probably been locked up.
Right,
More
your
than
dad,
likely
so
around here.
you're angry about that.
Yep.
The environment you're living in is a hostile environment. You see things like Deshaun Franklin.
Yep.
You know, the cops rush in 3 police officers, one of which has 30 citizens' complaints who's still in force. Okay, it's not funny. This is so Kafka-esque when you talk about, we talked, the last tape we did, we talked about Bizarro World, you know, that, if you remember that.
Yeah.
This thing is so bizarre that things that would seem to be obviously noticeable and wrong and unfair, when you bring them to everybody's attention, they either have an excuse for it or respond in some, well, I don't see anything wrong with that, which is kind of like frustrating.
And people have to understand how much, I mean, poverty in and of itself is violence.
It's oppressive.
It
is a form of
real violence, you know. Even if you have a kid, and I've seen this just kind of in my experience here, even if you have a kid, right, who's born into a single parent household, single mom, she's working part-time, you know, plus taking care of kids, right, dad may be locked up. I mean, these are cases that I know there's many of them, right?
Sure.
Even if they have grandparents right now, because of how tough the economic conditions are here locally, grandparents can barely afford to help out because they can barely afford gas to drive to pick up kids.
Most of them are living on Social Security.
They're living on a fixed income, right? The cost of housing is rising drastically.
Right.
You have predatory code enforcement here that's on grandparents, you know, on elderly folks here. Keep your grass up, do this, do that, or we're going to take your house from you. It's going to go up for tax sale. So that even creates frustrations where grandparents can't even help out their kids or grandkids in the way that they want to because they're cash strapped, they're tired, they're frustrated. So you have black males here who just kind of feel like they're out on their own. So who are they to turn to?
Well, yeah, and so, but you don't have any role models because,
well, your real role models get shown, like you, Henry, right?
Well, but why? Well, that's another part of this because we're not we're not acceptable by the establishment
Right.
because we challenge the establishment. Therefore, the establishment won't validate us.
Right.
But who they will validate are acceptable black men.
Of course,
okay,
right.
who are acceptable because they won't speak out against the oppression.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? So it becomes, and so the young men see this and go, why should I be like that? I mean, they just take this stuff, and they
Exactly.
never. I can't go
Exactly.
to them and have them speak
Exactly.
up for me.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I always like to say, anger. They become angry, poverty, and no voice. Okay. So anger turns to rage, and rage turns to violence. Does that make sense? You have a lot of young men that are just angry, and
Yeah.
and you know, it doesn't take much, you know, to have them enraged about something.
Yeah.
Because they're disrespected.
Right.
And they see their mom disrespected.
Exactly,
And they see
yeah.
their dad disrespected.
And they're locked out of opportunities.
Yeah. Well, you know, going back to school, what's this thing with tickets? I mean, what these kids getting tickets, getting written up?
Oh.
Like
Yeah.
write-ups? Like if you
No, they actually
disciplinary?
get tickets. Jordan will explain to you.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but you talking about like the parking tickets or
No,
something?
no,
they
the
get for-
disciplinary issues.
Okay, yeah.
Some of the SROs,
Mm-hmm.
the resource officers, they're all South Bend police. There was this whole issue of them writing tickets,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be introduced into the criminal justice system that way.
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I know that was a major issue that I think some local folks took up, and it might have been addressed, but I don't know if they've really revisited because there's so many other issues going
so
on in the
many
school
issues,
corporation.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
even really know where to start or when to stop.
Yeah.
Because as you try to address one problem, another problem arises over here, and then you have to do that, so you're constantly kind of putting out fires. But yeah, there's over discipline in the schools. There's hyper aggressive police officers in the schools, SROs, who are smoking weed with kids and beating them up all on the same day. You know, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens, yeah.
It's pretty bad. Sounds pretty bad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the reality some of these kids have to live with. I mean, and that's sad. It's just truly sad because South Bend is not like Chicago. You know, you talk to a lot of kids in Chicago, and they'll tell you they've never been downtown or never been to the zoo or anything like
Right.
that. South Bend, you get on your bike and ride downtown.
Right.
So all of a sudden, let's say a 16-year-old kid gets on his bike, rides downtown, and he sees people enjoying themselves, festivals and parties, right? So how do you think he's going to respond to that? I mean, he doesn't have, so what do you think he's going to do to get?
I'm actually not sure like what you're getting at. Like he doesn't have the luxury to enjoy these festivals, so he's gonna.
Well, if
do
his
it.
mom is making $8 an hour or $9 an hour or $10 an hour,
Right.
and she's barely putting food on the table.
Right.
So he probably doesn't have the best shoes, the best clothes, okay? And so he goes downtown and sees,
People with the best shoes. and the
yeah,
best clothes.
so
So he turns to what he knows and what he's seen all his life, and that's crime, is what you're getting at.
yeah.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And
mean,
in South Bend, to me, it just seems like they want to contain the crime to the west side, right? So I've been,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just from what
yeah,
I've
but
seen.
people, criminals. It's funny when they try and do that because you've had cases of Notre Dame students being
Of course,
stuffed
yeah.
in cars after they took their
Yeah.
credit cards and robbed.
I mean, I
in
live
their
on the south
apartment.
side. I know what teens do on the
Right,
south side. I
right,
know what
right.
young people are doing, young white
Right.
kids are doing, you know, because I went to school with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have nearly the same police presence. And I
Right.
live far south, right?
Well-
but when I'm on Western Avenue, I mean, it's all night. Police, South Bend
But
Police
it's
Department.
like people don't sell drugs in Granger or far south or in the outlying county areas. You know what I'm saying?
course
I mean,
not, no.
yeah. I
No, of
mean,
course not.
so
White
people
people
will
would never.
say to you, because I've had them say it to me, well, look where all the rest are at. Look where
Right.
well, but the reality is that the same laws are not enforced as vigorously
Right.
in Granger or in these outlying areas as they are in the black parts of town. Let me give you a perfect example. Joe Theismann's son, a couple decades ago, was arrested in Roseland with enough cocaine to be charged, I think, with an A felony. He ended up getting probation. Now, normally an A felony is mandatory prison time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many black kids you think get caught with an 8 ball, an ounce, half ounce, and get probation.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah,
They're
but
gone.
that's just white privilege. That's all we can really chalk that up to.
Yeah. It's also lack of resources. It's lack
Yeah.
of knowledge. I mean, I think, what is it, 80 or 90% of folks go to jail because they took a plea deal, right? Which
Yeah, 94%.
94%.
And it doesn't help when your entire race has been vilified since you came here.
Right.
So
Well, if you're going to a jury trial and here you sit, you got maybe a jury of 12. You may luckily have one
or two black people.
or two blacks. You know,
Yeah.
and
And you can't even read your paperwork if you're coming out of South Bend School Corporation because you're reading 3-4 grades below grade level, so you can't even read all the legal jargon. So I mean, from the start, you're set up to lose.
so you can't even participate in your defense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you're sitting there looking stupid,
Right.
okay, and you're black.
Yeah.
And you got a jury of
And- yeah.
10 or 11 white people looking at you thinking he left his gun
Yeah.
and he, out in the car and he's a member of a gang.
Right.
And whether he did it or not, let's just get him off the street.
And the law apparently is being applied equally, and that's why when you go to, the courthouse, everyone in there is black, even though we're only 27% of the population here.
Yeah.
And if in the county it's even less than that.
well,
you know,
in
and-
Indiana, 40% of prison population is black, but black people only amount to 12%.
12%
of
of the population in the state.
I mean, this is just, see, I want to,
And the public defenders, I want to say this too. The public defenders, when you go down there, and I'm always saying I've seen it because I like to speak from, I like to
Right.
talk about my
Empirical
experiences.
evidence.
Yeah, empirical, experiential evidence. I've been down there with, folks in my family, and I've literally seen the public defender tell them, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just go home. I got this. I already talked to the prosecutor. I talked to the judge. You're good. Don't worry."
yeah, you're good with, here's your
Right.
plea.
Yeah, here's your plea. And they're
Here's
like,
your plea.
okay, I'll take that.
Because they're only getting paid, they get like $250 or $300 a case. You know that, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, and it's funny when you look at someone like, I think John Broden, when he just got appointed to the bench here. He was a public defender and a state senator. But if you go online and you look at the cases, like 80 or 90% of the cases he got were plea bargain. So he can get a whole bunch of cases, get paid for them, and just plea bargain.
And not do any work. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a judge now. Okay.
Yeah. And then your paperwork is still not right. Your business still didn't get handled, and guess what? You got to come back.
Yeah, because here's the
So they'll
thing:
get another
if your
shot.
mama's making $8 an hour, maybe 10, and you get in some trouble, then a private lawyer, defense lawyer, is going to tell you, well, that's going to be $15,000 or $20,000, and she's going to say, Jordan, Terry, I can't afford that. We got to get your public defender, right?
Right.
Right.
So, and he's going to say, I got this. Go home, let me take care of this. Here, I got this plea worked out for you, but I didn't do it.
Right.
But you're facing 20 years. I got you 6 years.
I just recently I had a death in my family, pretty tragic death, and we went to an attorney to kind of talk about the case because some years ago they got someone else off for similar situation, and we spoke to them about the case and then about how we can sort of kind of address this issue on a systemic level. Attorney said, "This is my business. I'm not interested in that."
Yeah. Well, and that's really important too. You know what he's saying? He doesn't want to do anything to impair
Stop the
or hinder,
violence. Stop the murders.
hinder his business because it's an industry.
Yeah, it's an industry. Yeah.
It's an industry. It's $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
Jails, sell commissary.
Yep.
They sell telephone time. They sell uniforms and shower shoes and gym shoes and that kind of stuff. And so do prisons. If you got a private lawyer, that costs money. Now you're calling your mom or dad from the jail. That's $10 or $15.
Yep.
Commissary, I need some commissary. Now you're paying that. Okay. And you're starting out with over half of this population is already poverty stricken.
Right. Yeah. Chronic poverty.
But okay, so we know what it is. Okay, what are we going to do about it? We're going to go down to the mayor and we're going to say, here are these statistics. Okay, Jack, what are you going to do? And
He's not going to do anything 'cause he doesn't care.
okay,
Yeah.
you just said spending 20-something million on 9 minutes off the South Shore, and how much has been spent that we know that's been publicized for. We're the 20th of today's the 20th of June. Summer is the 21st, 22nd of June, and there's been no announcement about a youth employment program. So I guess there's none.
No.
It keeps people employed. You got to have people to work at the JJC. You got to have work for officers. You got to have work for cooks. I mean, it's an industry, you know.
Well, I talked to police officers, and there's been a mass exodus of black